Today I'm going to talk about my beef with Tim Henson. This is something that I've contemplated sharing my opinion on YouTube for quite some time, and I've found that out of all the fake guitar players on the internet, there's a few golden calves that cannot be mentioned without a ton of backlash. And in my opinion, Tim Henson is one of these guitar players. But rather than just stating that I don't like him on a personal taste level or something like that, I want to be pretty constructive about this and talk about how I believe that guitar playing like this is actually damaging for the future generation of players to come for a multitude of reasons. So a while back, probably a few years ago at this point, I was teaching at a local music school in town. And as many that have done this would know, there's a lot of subbing for teachers that may be out of town or get sick that goes on in these schools. And I had to sub for a teacher at the school, and one of his students was learning a song by Polyphia. At this time, the latest Polyphia album had just come out. It was influencing a lot of the Gen Zers. Particularly, the spotlight was directed on Tim Henson, who is pretty much the leader of the band for all intent and purpose and primary songwriter. And everybody wants to play like him. There's ads all over the internet, especially with Ibanez, since that's his guitar company that he is endorsed by, as well as Neural DSP plugins. Everything seemed to be Tim Henson at the forefront. And it was interesting because when I went to teach, his teacher informed me on some sub notes that basically his student was really advanced. They were working on really hard material. He barely could even play it himself. He literally told me this. And I went in, I heard the kid play the Polyphia song. I can't remember what song it was, but his technique was just all over the place right off the bat, right? And I wanted to help the kid out because, there's a lot of stuff with hybrid picking. Some of his sweep picking was just really, really rough, and it didn't really sound that good. And you could tell that he was just basically miming what he was hearing on the record and kind of just watching Tim Henson play and like trying to do the same thing. And this is when I had sort of a fishy feeling about all of the Polyphia stuff. Before, I wasn't really looking that closely at, Polyphia and like the whole fake guitar fiasco. It just wasn't really on my mind. I was like, I guess Tim Henson's just this virtuoso guy and has a really weird style of playing that I kind of don't really like, but it seems to be working for him. And as I'm teaching the kid this Polyphia song, I realized that some of the stuff in the song was actually like nonsensical in making it sound like the record. Like you couldn't do it. There was stuff like with the tapping that you would hear it on the record and it was like ultra compressed and sounded the exact same volume as the other notes. There was stuff with the hybrid picking too that I found to be kind of weird, like where the volume levels of all of them would just be kind of like equal volume. It sounded like, Death Magnetic from Metallica, like just ultra compressed, ultra edited, perfectly in time. So I spent the lesson trying to help this kid out with his technique and trying to basically show him a better way to play this, and he didn't want to hear any of it. He thought I was full of crap and basically called me old school. This kind of led me down my journey of initially liking Polyphia into kind of resenting them as a musical group. And I realized this over time. There was something missing to this whole equation because I would start getting students that would ask me to learn the material, and that's when something fishy started really going on for me. The first time it happened, it was kind of a fool me once situation. The second time it happened, I realized, okay, there's a lot of stuff I'm hearing on this recording that isn't actually happening in real time. It's massively edited, it's massively overproduced, and massively overdubbed, and in fact, I've never seen, and I could be wrong about this, okay, so I'm going to totally accept it if I am wrong, but personally, and I've looked, before I made this video, I looked all over the place, and because I was thinking it before I looked, I've never seen a video of Tim Henson not playing with a fully produced like song around him, meaning like I've never heard him just play off an iPhone recording, I've never heard him play solo, I've never heard him not play to a track. To me, that's a little bit fishy, and it makes me question the validity of his playing in general, because on the contrary to that, I have seen a video of him play with Steve Vai, with him and Scott LePage, and in my opinion, is pretty bad. So like it kind of shows you the contrast of like what they write versus how they can actually play, right? And there is kind of a story about how Steve Vai actually initially wanted them to retract his feature on their last album because they over-edited his performance, but eventually talked him into it and he was comfortable with it. So it kind of just shows you how they go about it. And I think in general, Tim Henson is decently out in the open about being pretty edited, but I also think he doesn't fully disclose how far to that extent he is doing it, which is kind of deceptive to people that learn his music or think that he's like a legendary guitar hero because, you know, when you really look at his playing in general, his technique is actually really not great. And same with Scott LePage. Scott LePage actually has worse technique than Tim Henson, in my opinion. And I know that a lot of people are going to hate on me and say, well, they're famous and you're not. And, you know, to that, sure, you're right. You know, they're famous. I'm not. Fair enough. Okay. But I wouldn't look to them to, you know, get your tabs or guitar techniques from them because they don't tell you, you know, how much editing went into their actual playing. The way that the record sounds versus how polished it actually is versus watching them play it doesn't match. Now, I don't want to go too far in depth on this with like doing the whole thing where I show you a bunch of recordings and then like show you how it's fake. I think anyone that has watched my channel at this point has enough critical thinking skills to kind of put two and two together with what I'm saying. But I think if, you know, we're going to have this kind of double standard here where, you know, everyone's come after Marson, everyone's come after Ichika, I think it needs to be put on the map that, hey, these guys really aren't any different than either one of those players. Here's the thing. If you don't care about this kind of thing, right, when it comes to editing music, you could say you don't care about it, and that's fine. But truly, it's really not great for the next generation of guitar players. It's very deceptive, in my opinion, and a lot of it is used to push product. Like, obviously, you know, Polyphia is great at marketing, you know. They have neural DSP plugins, they have signature guitars. Like, they've done a great job as a brand. I don't think you should look up to them from a musician standpoint because, you know, a lot of their stuff just isn't humanly possible to play. Now, here's what I do want to mention also. I don't think that, like, Tim Henson can't play the stuff that he writes. I'm not really saying that. I think his writing process is completely unorganic. If you've watched in his Rick Beato interviews, he literally talks about how he'll take a keyboard synth, MIDI it out, and then essentially learn the notes and replicate it on guitar, probably using Guitar Pro too to, you know, tab it out for himself. And a lot of people will say, well, that's still creative. Well, it's not really. It's just using a passive part of your brain, in a sense, being pretty lazy and letting a inanimate object do something for you and just putting it out as a record. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to get inspiration from stuff, but straight up just copy pasting a MIDI track onto guitar, in my opinion, isn't really that creative. That writing style is pretty inauthentic. I think Tim Henson does learn how to play these parts pretty much note for note. There's not really a lot of smoothness in his playing. Like, in my personal opinion, if he didn't have that to go off, he probably wouldn't know what to play, you know? And I think that shows for, you know, with the Steve Vai thing, it's all technicalities. Tim Henson and Scott LePage kind of seem to come from like the deathcore scene. You know, looks like, you know, at least from what I know about their career, that they were in like a bunch of deathcore and death metal bands before they did Polyphia. And it kind of sucks in a way because I think a lot of that era's music relied heavily on edited production. So in a way, it's not really their fault that they may naturally kind of go down that path, but I do think it's inauthentic in a lot of ways. That doesn't mean they can't literally play it. I mean, there's videos of them playing it live, right? So I'm not going to say they're not playing it. I don't think it's like a Marson situation in that sense, but I do think that it is deceptive performance and deceptive writing, definitely deceptive recording. My last kind of, I guess, note that I'll make on specifically Tim Henson, because of his solo career as well. You know, his writing is just really uninteresting, to be honest. I think a lot of people get sucked into like the technique looks cool thing. Even though, We just talked about how overproduced and edited it is, but you know, he doesn't really have any harmonic direction in his writing. I mean, most of his progressions are just 2-6-5-1 the entire song. Like, it's literally just a loop. I mean, it basically is a hip hop track with a guitar on it. That's basically what, you know, all Polyphia is, as well as Tim Henson's writing. Like, it doesn't really go anywhere. So I just find it pretty monotonous. I know people will say that's subjective, but I guess that's my 2 cents on the thought. Some people are probably going to totally hate this video, but I think it should be mentioned at some point that Tim Henson is a part of the fake guitar movement. I have mentioned him in my other videos, but I think just dedicating a concise thought to him and his band is needed and called for. And I just think everybody's too afraid to say it, to be honest. I think... like I said, there's some guitarists that are a part of this that seem to have become golden calves down the road here. And I think we're just really in a rough spot right now for electric guitar. I mean, literally like 90% of everything you see on the internet right now, guitar-wise, is fake. You know, I'll be the first one to say it. If other people don't want to say it, that's fine. People are kind of playing it safe. They're riding the waves of who says who is fake, and it's like, oh, it's safe to say this guy, it's not safe to say this guy. Coming from a professional musician, someone that knows how to make fake guitar parts, if I wanted to, I'm going to just tell all of you watching this video that 90% of all the guitar players on YouTube that you watch are fake, okay? It's easy to tell, and it's also easy to tell who's actually playing their stuff. I want to give a shout out to some players that I think, that I know are real, and I think you should check them out. Let me know what you think about this video. If you want to study with me one-on-one and become better at guitar, become a better musician, become a better musician all around, email me directly. My email is in the link in the description and the pinned comment. And if it's a good fit, I'd love to work with you. Although I will say I am going to be closing my lesson spots very soon. I only have a couple left, and once those are filled, I'm not going to be taking any more students for the foreseeable future. So I'm kind of doing it on a first-come, first-served basis right now. If you want to work with me, email me, and we'll see if it's a good fit. So with that being said, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.